against same-sex marriage. Now you're for it. You defended President Obama's immigration policies. Now you say they're too harsh. You supported his trade deal dozens of times. You even called it the gold standard. Now, suddenly last week, you're against it. Will you say anything to get elected?
Well, actually, I have been very consistent over the course of my entire life.
Be bought off anyway. I mean, they're angry because of murders that have been committed. It's kind of hard to buy off somebody who's angry because they feel like their friends and family are being murdered, right? So it's just clear. It's just clear that that during the Obama administration, not only were we supposed to buy into the idea that he was going to do something about racism, which he didn't do anything. You know, he pretended like just by being half black, and by the way, his mother's whiter than my mother is, that was somehow just, we were just supposed to take it for granted that was him doing something about racism. Oh, we've got a black president. Oh, everything's great. Racism is over, you know, and so it becomes clear from this data that they're using that sentiment to create their infrastructure, to get into the black community and buy off a certain amount of them to try and do just like what they did to white people. I mean, they clearly bought off a number of white people and made those white people try to convince the rest of the white people that everything was okay when it wasn't. I mean, we know that. And they're trying to do the same things during the 8 years of Obama, they tried to do the same thing, okay, but with black people. And no doubt they're going to try and do it with Hispanics, and we'll probably see a Hispanic president in the next 20 years. You know, and it's all fucking bullshit, man. It's all just a game, except for progressives. Progressives are the ones that are truly standing up to the system, to the rich. And I'm not saying there won't be a progressive who's bought off. As a matter of fact, I'd almost guarantee it. That's just kind of the thing you can be sure of when there's this much money involved. I mean, any of us would be tempted, right? And let me say right now as a final thing, and hopefully you're still listening, don't be one of those people. Don't sacrifice, don't take the money, man. Don't do it. You might as well sign a contract with the devil. I mean, it'll be the end of you, I'll tell you that. But aside from that, you'll be a shithead, you know, for the rest of your life. You take that money from these assholes, then you're just a shithead for the rest of your life, and we'll all know it. It's not hard for us to see who gets bought off, and you'll definitely become the enemy. You'll become our enemy. They're our enemies. I mean, they're taking our money and they're using it to fight illegal wars, torture, murder. Of course, they're our enemies. I mean, we're not stupid enough to try and kill them. Instead, we're trying to rally the people in support of our causes, and that's more deadly than a gun or a sword. Just like a pen is mightier than the sword, we have a far more deadly weapon to all those people. So when you think about maybe being bought off, you might think about how dangerous we are, because we're really dangerous, and we're going to win, and we don't plan on hurting anybody, but that doesn't mean we're any less dangerous. I mean, if they try and stop us, they're going to find out that they've got 300 million people at their throat. And a lot of those people are dangerous too. So you know, I mean, it's always dangerous to go up against the masses who have ethics. I mean, we're not like out to get rich or anything like that. We have the ethics and morals on our side. We have the truth on our side. We're honest people, and we're hardworking, and that's the power that will bring down anybody. And if anybody dares to not accept our kindness and our fairness, justice, all those good things, well, they'll find they're on the wrong side of America. You know, we're coming, and you guys might as well come to terms with that.
Latino and African American working class, which have previously been more economically stable, those in the 60th to 95th percentile in their respective groups, and situated in the 40th to 80th percentile overall, were particularly devastated from 2007 to 2016, as compared to the poorer halves of their racial groups.
Okay, so, you know, there's a lot of ramifications that they don't talk about. For those of you who want to understand economics, so you've got what they're talking about here. They're talking about money, right? They're talking about on paper the ultra wealthy and like I said, minorities, the tiny bit of minorities who have a lot of money have gotten a lot more money. I mean, that's just stuff on paper, right? Now, what does that stuff on paper represent? Whether it's dollar bills or just a number in a bank account or what have you. Well, they represent whatever you could buy with that, right? Well, if you got $10 billion, you're not going to buy 500,000 Tampax, right? And I'm not trying to be rude to women or anything. I'm just using that as an example. You're not going to buy, I mean, you might buy a whole bunch of cow farms, or you might buy a whole bunch of cattle or something like that. And that's investment and stuff. But for those people who have all that money, how much, what use is it for them to buy these things off of each other just because they think one might become worth more or less or whatever, or more, I guess. You wouldn't buy something if you thought it was going to become worth less. But what would be the point, right? So what else could that money represent? Well, it could represent employment. It could represent labor. You could invest it in labor to build yourself more houses, or who knows, or whatever labor is used for, right? I mean, factories and all that kind of stuff, and to build stuff and sell stuff. But every indication is that that doesn't grow very fast, because when they talk about GNP, they're talking about that growth. And generally speaking, GNP is stagnant. They're not producing more goods and services, because on the whole, if anything, they're shrinking that. They're selling less and less to people and giving people less and less of that money they have bottled up to spend on those things, right? So that's why, that's a perfect explanation of why that wealth would be getting bigger, right? So they're saying their bank accounts are getting bigger. Well, because they're not spending it on producing stuff, because they're not planning on selling stuff to people. So their money, their bank accounts get bigger and bigger instead of smaller and smaller. Okay, I love posting my little memes and getting all kinds of comments. James Willis says, so I didn't push either one. So he didn't vote. Which I didn't either. I didn't vote for Trump. But, of course, I didn't have to. I mean, I live in Kentucky. I knew he was going to win. I didn't have to vote for or against him. And I never would have voted for Hillary, obviously. Oh, I'm sorry. I keep forgetting her name's Shillery, because she's a shill for all the corporations, because she takes millions and millions of dollars from them. Jerry Rhea Moore says that's tough. Pushing the Trump button has shown to be the biggest mistake. Well, it wasn't a mistake for us. I mean, it's a mistake, sure. It's not a mistake. I mean, Trump is a disaster. We know that. But we didn't do it by accident. We didn't think that he was going to be good for the country. We did it to keep Hillary out of the White House. I mean, if you can't understand that by now, after all the posts I've made, then I can't help you. I say, not for progressives. Since Trump won, we have flipped 9 Republicans. That's 9 and 0. And the trend continues. When an establishment Dem is President of the United States, she keeps progressives from winning. And then the Republican beats the establishment Dem, just like with Hillary. It's a strategy that has worked time and time again for Republicans. So establishment Dems like Hillary are in essence just moles for the Republicans, weakening and destroying the Democratic Party for progressives. So keeping establishment Dems out of office is a good move for us. You understand? Can anybody understand that? Why do people keep on arguing with me about this? This is the way to go. You know, we will keep on sabotaging establishment Dems until we get progressives. So if they want to sabotage the party, then we'll sabotage them. You know, if they're gonna take us down, at least we can take them down. And them and their Republican friends who are screwing us can all sit there and laugh at us, because, and we know that we're screwed either way, but at least this way we define the problem, right? I mean, we point out that establishment Dems are just working for the Republicans. At some point that's got to hurt them. At some point everybody is going to be able to see the same thing we see, and that's that establishment Democrats aren't really Democrats. They're just Republican moles. So keeping them out of office is a good move for us, even if it temporarily leads to hell on earth, which happens anyway over and over again. I mean, it's not like anybody can miss the fact that Bush was a fucking disaster for the American people, and so was Obama, you know. So once we beat these establishment Dems, we start, as the 9-0 indicates, to get progressive candidates up against Republicans, and over we have proved we can beat them. Whereas establishment Democrats have proved they cannot, hence Hillary, I'm sorry. Culminating in Hillary's loss to Trump, the ultimate proof. Bernie would have beat the living shit out of Trump in a landslide. And I say that, I know I don't have proof, but I say it anyway, and I believe it. So, Jesus, Jerry, what are you, got nothing else to do but reply to my comments? You're right. says Jerry Rhea Moore. Although the price we are paying for Trump is a steep one. Yeah, I know. I mean, for some of us, Trump is death. Death, Rhea, or Jerry Rhea. Some of us will die. I mean, I'm already suffering. I have no health care, and not because of Trump in particular, but because of the Republicans in Kentucky. They force us to pay them off to get Trump care. That's the deal that was made, that we have to go through an MCO, and all they do is bring us in and say hi and what's your problem, but they never do anything for us. And then they bill Medicaid massive amounts of money, so they're stealing our tax dollars. So, you know, I'm suffering, and I could die. I mean, if you don't have health insurance, who knows what they're going to do to you once they get you in the hospital. You know, they might just set you to one side and take people who are paying customers, right? I mean, we know the capitalist health system is not kind to people who don't have money, and we've seen it. Just watch Sicko, you know, Michael Moore's Sicko, and see how they treat poor people. Even, I mean, just watch it and you'll see what I'm talking about. And that's a generalization, but for what he showed, what he could get on tape, there's probably, you know, thousands of people who experience the same thing or other things. So we're all suffering. And you know what? I'm not the devil, but I agree with Dante, you know, with my last breath I spit at thee. You know, I mean, I'm just a human being, and I'm a good, honest person. I'm not evil, but I have to agree with the devil in what was that book? Anyway, whatever it was. I mean, fuck them. Fuck them. And fuck me. Because, I mean, I'm screwed, right? So fuck them. And, you know, sometimes it's easier just to leave. You know, just to die and go, fuck all these people. And hope that there's, really is some kind of karma involved. Anyway, she says if we can get that majority in 2018, we've got real leverage. And that's what I mean, I would have voted for Trump if I had to, even though he's a scumbag. That's what the whole strategy is. It's to screw the establishment Dems to give us an opening to take back the party. And she says the same thing. I mean, she agrees with me completely. I don't know if we're even arguing. I don't think we are. No, we're not. I'm just in an argumentative mood right now because this stuff pisses me off. So she's absolutely in agreement with me. She says we have to keep these establishment Dems at a distance, which I think means, and continue to push for real progressive wins. If the Dems make the fatal mistake of running another establishment candidate in the next presidential election, we're screwed. Well, no, we're not really screwed because we're winning right and left. If they're able to put enough money and power and pull enough strings to keep us out again, all they do.
Search Observer opinion: corporate Democrats sabotage single-payer bill in California for wealthy donors. Activists call Speaker Rendon's decision unconscionable. By Michael Sainato, June 26, 11:45 a.m. Healthcare activists hold signs in support of SB 562 on June 21 in San Francisco. Justin Sullivan/Getty Images. Led by National Nurses United, progressives in California have been pushing SB 562, the bill that would create a single-payer Medicare for all healthcare system in the state. On June 23, Assembly Speaker Anthony Rendon shut down the bill despite Democrats holding the state House, Senate, and governorship, providing the opportunity for Democrats to easily pass the bill. The Los Angeles Times reported Rendon announced late Friday afternoon that the bill, Senate Bill 562 by State Sens. Ricardo Lara D. Bell Gardens and Tony Atkins D. San Diego, would not advance to a policy hearing in his House, making it all but certain the measure will not be acted upon this year. Rendon, in a brief statement, called the bill wholly incomplete. Hours before, according to a statement from CNA/National Nurses United co-president Deborah Berger, the California Nurses Association submitted an additional set of proposed amendments in advance of the first Assembly hearing to begin the completion of the bill Speaker Rendon had said was missing, the clear sign that his decision was not only unconscionable but also disingenuous in even the reasons he cited for freezing the bill. However, given his ties to the health insurance and pharmaceutical industries, it's not surprising that Speaker Rendon shut down the bill. In an election swung by fraudulent votes, his senior advisor, Eric Bauman, was recently elected by party insiders to chair the California Democratic Party chair. Bauman received over $100,000 in 2016 lobbying for the pharmaceutical industry against Prop 61, which would have capped prescription drug prices in California. In 2015, the Sacramento Bee reported that Rendon received over $36,000 from drug makers. In April 2017, Times reported that House Speaker Anthony Rendon, Senate President Kevin De Leon and Governor Jerry Brown, all Democrats, have received a combined $370,000 from groups opposing single-payer healthcare legislation. Since 2010, these lawmakers have received $3.4 million in campaign donations from the health insurance industry. While California voters and progressive groups demand single-payer healthcare in the state, the Democratic establishment in California has been bought and paid for by the pharmaceutical and healthcare industries to prevent it from becoming a reality. At a time when the United States is the only major country on earth not to guarantee healthcare for all, and when tens of millions of Americans are uninsured or underinsured because of outrageously high costs, California has the opportunity to lead this nation in a very different health care direction, Senator Bernie Sanders said in response to Speaker Rendon's decision to pull the plug on the bill. If the great state of California has the courage to take on the greed of the insurance companies and the drug companies, the rest of the country will follow. Every day, 5 people in California die due to lack of health insurance. Several polls have shown that a majority of Americans support the Medicare for all healthcare system. That this bill was pulled despite being passed by the state Senate signals the extent of corruption within the Democratic Party. In order to become the party that fights for the policies they market themselves with, the Democratic Party must purge itself of leaders that prioritize the interests of donors over voters.
More what fucked up assholes they are, and they pointed out to not just progressive Dems but to the whole country. I mean, look, when in your life did you ever see the presidential candidate, the Republican presidential candidate, Trump? When did you ever see a Republican candidate who was running against Hillary, stand up and, maybe he's just stupid, right? But whatever the reason, stand up and say, well, look at how the establishment Dems fucked Bernie. We're getting everything we want in a way. Oh, you say you're leery of Kamala. Yeah, because she plays, she's a good pretend Democrat.
Is Kamala Harris' support for Medicare for All pandering or sincere? By Michael Sainato, September 1, 1711, 18 a.m. Senator Kamala Harris. Chip Samodevla/Getty Images. Senator Kamala Harris has spent her first year in the U.S. Senate positioning herself for a presidential run in 2020. Earlier this summer, she courted donors to Hillary Clinton in the Hamptons. She has hired several former Clinton staffers, including those with experience in Iowa. And even though she doesn't face re-election soon, she gave $400,000 to Revolution Messaging, the digital and branding strategy firm behind Bernie Sanders' 2016 campaign, to elevate her national profile. In a move that aligns her aspirations with a growing, popular movement, Harris formally announced her support of Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All bill on August 31, noting that she plans to co-sponsor it. Progressives reacted to her announcement with cautious optimism. They lauded her decision but expressed concerns over her sincerity. National Nurses United Director Roseanne DeMauro tweeted that since Sanders from Vermont has publicly supported the CA #PE bill SB 562, I would like to see CA senators do the same. Harris' support for the California legislation, though inconsequential since she serves in federal government, would boost the bill's momentum. In California, single-payer health care has been a divisive issue. The bill, SB 562, has been pushed by activists and the National Nurses United, but it has been coldly received by a stubborn Democratic Party. Even though it passed in the state Senate in June 2017, State Assembly Speaker Anthony Rendon shut down the opportunity for the bill to be voted on in the state assembly. Rendon received widespread backlash from progressives and activists for the move. The struggle in California has illuminated how dire of an issue healthcare reform is. The Medicare for All bill in the House of Representatives currently is 117 co-sponsors. Congressman John Conyers has introduced the bill every year since 2003, but this is the first time that a majority of Democrats in the House have supported it. In California, the state Democratic Party finally endorsed SB 562, the Medicare for All bill. However, Speaker Rendon has yet to allow the bill to move forward, and neither of California's senators, Kamala Harris and Dianne Feinstein, have publicly supported it. Harris' support for the bill would help make Medicare for All a reality in California, but if she fails to speak out on the issue, her support for Sanders' Medicare for All bill in the Senate will be seen as little more than empty rhetoric. Progressives will see it as pandering to win their support rather than a sincere effort to provide health care to every American.
A lot of people. Yeah, Cory Booker, Claire McCaskill, what a bitch. They all play to the media. They're very quick to look good, but then they'll turn around and vote for, military spending and all that kind of crap. They're not on our side. They're establishment Democrats. They take bribes, and they pay those bribes back. You like Tulsi? I'd be careful for Joe Kennedy. These are establishment Democrats. Warren, another establishment Democrat. They talk a good talk, but why should we trust them? Why shouldn't we trust a progressive Democrat instead? I'm sure we can run real progressives against all of these, except for Tulsi. I think Tulsi's not a progressive Dem. I don't like her stand on Syria. She doesn't seem to be able to be anti-Assad. I mean, we all have to be anti-Assad. He's a scumbag. No, we don't have to support boots on the ground. We don't have to support American intervention. We don't need to support American troops in the Kurdish parts of Syria, and we don't even have to support them supporting the Free Syrian Army, even though I think the Free Syrian Army is worth a certain amount of support. I mean, there's a genocide going on against Sunnis, and there's a genocide going on against Shia. Just depends on whether you're talking about Syria and Iraq, or Yemen, or over in Bangladesh, where with the Rohingya. These genocides need to stop. I mean, they're a good solution to our overpopulation problem, but are we really that fucking stupid that we can't deal with overpopulation without massacring massive amounts of people just because we don't like their religion? I don't know. I mean, it's crazy. Anyway, she says, but of course my heart and faith lies with Bernie, and yes, we should all support Bernie, but not if he's going to make another deal with the establishment. He's not losing energy, and he's in great health. As long as he picks a running mate in the ilk of one of the few I suggested, will be fine. But at the same time, Jerry Rhea, or Jerry, we can't have him cutting deals with establishment Dems. So, I mean, if it comes down to it, and he says he refuses to not cut a deal with establishment Dems, if he doesn't spurn the DNC and say, well, I'm going to have my own fundraising, and I'm going to have my own phone numbers and addresses, I'm going to have my own people on the ground, or something like Reboot Army, we can do it for him, then he's not going to be our candidate. I'm sorry if that hurts your feelings, Jerry, but we can't have somebody who's married to the DNC and establishment Democrats again. We're not going to make that same mistake. Now, if you guys decide to make that mistake, we're not going to be with you. And when it comes to the election, we're going to sabotage Bernie if he's still married to the DNC. We're not going to go through what we went through in the whatchamacallit in Philadelphia, the convention. Now, when our guy gets up, or gal gets up and stands up for us as our candidate, as a Democratic candidate, he's going to be completely free of all establishment Democratic institutions, deals, what have you. And whoever he or she is, he has a better shot than Bernie at gathering and gaining support of all the people. Because if Bernie takes another deal with the DNC, we're going to make that clear from the very beginning. We're going to run against him. We're going to run somebody against him, whether it's Tulsi, who you mentioned up here, or any number of people who are just as good as Bernie. Bernie's only got a better chance right now because we ran him before. but we're not going to run him again if he refuses to not cut a deal with the DNC again. That deal with the DNC was behind our back. We didn't even know it was with the DNC. I don't even know if it was with the DNC. Maybe he cut it with Hillary, or maybe who knows who he cut it with, but he cut it, and he cut us. He cut us bad. And you know, I don't see us, I mean, Kennedys are just, I mean, they're rich. We're not gonna take another rich person. You know, Bernie only made $250,000 a year up to when he ran for president. If he's making more than that now, off of who knows what speeches and stuff, contributions, donations, whatever, then that's proof that he's a problem too. We don't need any more rich people. We don't need any more rich politicians. They're out. So, and we'll find somebody, we'll pick somebody, and whoever it is, they'll be great, because we back them. Except for we're getting better and better at picking people. We're getting better and better at deciding who to back. And we'll decide who to back, not the establishment. And I assure you that whoever we pick, you'll like them. You know, you and all the millions of other people who we had behind Bernie. Now, I'm not saying we're not going to be able to, I mean, Bernie's already started his own party, so maybe he'll run as a social democrat, or whatever the party name is that he runs under, as an independent. You know, maybe our revolution will be completely divorced, and I believe it is already. And he'll run as an Our Revolution Democrat, or a Reboot Democrat, or whoever, but he will run divorced from the establishment, or we'll sink him, or it'll be the end for him. I mean, it's his mistake to make. He doesn't have to run the same bullshit campaign as he did before. You know, he was perfect except for that one thing, and we're not running that way. So I say sacrifice, and I say I just had to opt out of Obamacare because they make you do it through an MCO that is profiting off my health care, which is so true, and it's so fucked up. And the Republicans force everybody to do that here in Kentucky. When I went to cancel my MCO, there was not an option to not cancel my Medicaid. I deserve my Medicaid. I worked hard and paid into Medicaid all my life. And now that I've decided to retire, I can't have health care. I mean, I'm just too fragile. My health, I could never work again. It would kill me. It was already killing me when I was doing it when I was 50 and 52. It was already hurting me. Anyway, so, you know, I should still have health care. And I say, everyone has to be ready to make sacrifices to get what we need. I think everyone should boycott for-profit health care until we have single payer, even if it kills you. And I firmly believe that. And Amy Smith says WTC, which I still can't figure out what that means. You let us down. And believe propaganda, the blame is on you. Who's WTC? I have no idea what WTC is. And then she says, speak what? UK #1 in world single payer, top notch in all ways. Sweden #2, 3 payers. We pay 3 to 4 times. Yeah, I know. That's what I was saying. And I say to her, Americans don't live in Sweden or the UK. We Americans should boycott for-profit health care. That is an extreme sacrifice for us. I mean, what does what they have to do with what we have? We have for-profit health care with some Obamacare. And I say some of us would die doing so. If you don't get that, I can't explain it any simpler. And Arlo Duff says, maybe you're not following along, but the very fact that alternative cheated democracy proves that Trump was the better alternative. Those who would give an essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety, Benjamin Franklin. If you lack the scruples to fight for democracy, you should not act like you're in any way qualified to discuss how to move forward as a nation. I don't think he's talking to me, but anyway, I say, Arlo Duff, this is about keeping Hillary out of the White House and progressives kicking her ass and Trump's ass later. Trump is still an ass. He's a piece of shit. That doesn't change. What changes is we progressives kick the shit out of the establishment Dems, and when we come out in 2018 and 2020 and kick the living shit out of Trump and the GOP, that is the payoff. In fact, we have flipped 9 Republicans since 2017, and just to reiterate it, I say 9-0. So, Terry Goodhart says, can't believe some people did push the Trump button, terrible. And I said, there are worse things a person could do, like go on a shooting spree. And by that I mean, it's obvious, right, that it's better to do legal things and work on democracy and vote and be a protester and an activist than to go and lose your mind and probably end up dead by doing something crazy to try and make a point. And then Paul Miner says, first things first, Trump has to go. Well, obviously in 2020 Trump is going to go, but I say the opposite is true. The only way to beat the Trumps and GOP is to run progressives against them. Okay, so listen up, people. Paul Miner, this is important, and I'm probably just going to say it once here, so let's pay special attention here. We have monumental task before us in between now and 2018, and especially before 2020. That task is to run progressive candidates who don't take money from the establishment and don't okay, there's two things here. Okay, we either avoid the DNC and work around the DNC, or we have to take over the DNC. Okay, so whether we take over all the people in the DNC, take over all the super delegates, take over all the delegates, so that all of our people, our voters are represented properly, which we know they're not. I mean, somebody mentioned to me the other day that this Kamala Harris already has 700 super delegates backing her. I mean, how fucked is that? So we've got a monumental task. We either work around the establishment system that has taken over the Democratic Party, or we take it over. Now we've got to do one or the other. We've got to neutralize this systemic takeover of the Democratic Party. I mean, it's our party. I'd say 75% of Democrats are progressive Democrats at this point. So the fact that they can't run their candidates and stuff obviously is some kind of coup, right? I mean, it's obviously some kind of subversion of our party by establishment Democrats. So they bought people off or something. Somehow they're ruling the party without the consent of the governed, right? Without the constituency, without the voters, the people. They're not representing us. And they're not representing us, they're representing the rich, right? They vote with Republicans on things like massive military budgets and things like that. So we've got to do that to win. And I think we're already doing it in a way because we're winning a lot of smaller seats and stuff, and that's going to lead to a crumbling of the Democratic establishment. At some point it's going to come down one way or another, that's for sure. So we need to do that. 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 I mean, I don't know how else to say it. We've got to do that. We've got to get in, and our candidates, the people who we decide to back, whether it's Bernie or whoever it is, we can't back them unless they're going to make that happen for us. I mean, for sure, we got to get rid of these super delegates. I mean, they're bullshit, man. We all know how they screwed us, right? And we all know how the DNC screwed us by doing things like saying they won California before they won it and all that crap, right? I mean, all the little gamesmanship. Well, they can do that, but outside of the Democratic Party. We can't let the Democratic Party sabotage progressive candidates. That's just bullshit, man. That's the biggest bunch of fucking bullshit. I mean, even when they do it legally, that's just a bunch of bullshit. Just because they can get away with it doesn't mean it's right. They seem to think they can say that like, oh, well, we did it, and fuck you, right? Well, fuck you, you know? We don't have to put up with it. So then, Amy Smith says, what are you talking about? Trump's approval ratings are 32%, Trump's job performance at 24%, women, you don't want to know. And I say, that's irrelevant. All you do is prove my point with all those stats. You're saying that establishment Dems are that bad that we're actually having to say we would take Trump over them, which we're not really saying that. We're saying we will keep establishment Dems out, and well, I say that, which still isn't the point. The real point is we are saying that we want progressives over them. And if we can't have our progressive candidates, we will protest by sinking establishment candidates like we did Hillary when they come up against three thugs. So that's it. That's it right there. I mean, we will do it over and over again. We will sabotage these establishment Democrats. I mean, they're just traitors. Why should we feel bad about sinking their candidates when they're traitors to the party? They're just moles that snuck in. They're not real Democrats. Don't buy into that bullshit when they try and claim that they're so good. No, they're not. I mean, I'm not saying they're horrible people. I'm not saying that they aren't better than Trump and wouldn't do better, but at the same time, it's clear that they're working with them. You know, I mean, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, chances are it's a duck. Okay, so I've covered a lot of this, but this ass Arlo Duff, I finally kicked him out of my friends, unfriended him. You know, he's trying to argue that Trump is some kind of great guy. I mean, I don't need those kind of people. And you know that as far as Democratic Party headquarters and Democratic Party headquarters news goes, I'm not here to argue about Trump. I'm not here to prove anything about Trump, what an ass he is. I mean, that's just assumed. It's assumed that he's, you know, while he may have gotten away with it, and maybe he doesn't, maybe there's no proof and whatever, but I believe he's a horrible person. You know, if I had to say yes or no, I would say that he's raped young girls or paid them for sex. I mean, I think his whole marriage is just kind of a big prostitution. I mean, you can pay women to have your kids, and it's still prostitution. It's a different kind of prostitution. I mean, prostitution is usually for sex with the idea of not having kids, right? But who's to say that you can't, who's to say that marriage isn't prostitution in its own way, except for you're paying women to have sex, to have your kids, right? I mean, all that depends on how willing they'd be to have your kids if there was no money involved. So if they had to get up every day and go to work and take care of your kid, would they still have your kids? You know, if they had to take care of themselves. On the other hand, if they're given basically millions of dollars and a great lifestyle and able to fuck guys on the side and do whatever they want and get money, isn't that prostitution? Even if they do have your kids for you. You know, I mean, I don't know. Anyway, my point is I don't really like to talk about Trump, but I am going to talk about this because I kicked, I unfriended somebody over it. He posted this, and it's an article that claims that the police have been busting sex traffickers right and left under Trump, whereas they didn't before. Well, let me tell you something. If they have been, it's because Trump is interested in shutting people up. Because I'm going to post this article for you to listen to. The friendship between Trump and billionaire pedophile that nobody wants to talk about. And all you have to do is Google Trump Lolita Express, and you'll get millions of, well, 1,010,000 results. But I mean, the fact is there's very little doubt in my mind that Trump was hanging out with Epstein. There's plenty of pictures of him with Epstein. There's plenty of eyewitnesses. And I think even he has said that he was Epstein's friend in an interview at some time before he was running for president, right? I mean, now he's trying to do everything to distance himself from that, right? But, you know, I mean, and this is the last I'm going to say about Trump on the news here. Except for, I mean, sure, every once in a while, I just can't resist talking about what an ass hat he is. You know, a hat that's on an ass instead of a head. I mean, you can't help it, right? Especially when you get people like this Arlo, and he's trying to say all this shit. And then he tries to post something to prove it, and it's this. Of course Trump says things to try and make it look like he's not a pervert. He's still a pervert. Just because he's trying to look good doesn't mean he's not a pervert anymore.
The friendship between Trump and a billionaire pedophile that nobody wants to talk about. Photo of Peter Hasson. Peter Hasson, Associate Editor, 635 page. October 9, 2016. 73,171,757. While Donald Trump deals with the aftermath of lewd comments he made about women back in 2005, the public still has not gotten any real answers about at least another potentially problematic aspect of Trump's history, his past friendship with billionaire and convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Trump's friendship with Epstein has been largely untouched in the mainstream press, and those around Trump have been reluctant to provide details on the nature of the two billionaires' relationship. Epstein, who reportedly ran a sex ring where he trafficked young girls to his elite circle of friends, served time in jail for soliciting an underage prostitute and has reached out-of-court settlements with 17 of his then underage victims. He's been the subject of an almost endless string of court cases. For a deeper look at Epstein's abuse of underage girls, see this 2010 piece from the Daily Beast. This image from the website of the Florida Department of Law Enforcement shows Jeffrey Epstein's permanent status as a registered sex offender. This image from the website of the Florida Department of Law Enforcement shows Jeffrey Epstein's permanent status as a registered sex offender. That Trump's friendship with Epstein has been given what largely amounts to a pass from the media may be due in part to Epstein's more prominent ties to Bill Clinton and Britain's Prince Andrew. Epstein's ties to Clinton and Prince Andrew have largely overshadowed his ties to Trump. Clinton and allies have yet to make Trump's Epstein ties a campaign issue. Then again, any attacks on Trump over his ties to Epstein would almost certainly guarantee that Trump would bring up Clinton's own documented Epstein ties, including flight logs showing that Clinton took at least 26 trips on Epstein's infamous private sex plane, dubbed the Lolita Express. To the extent that Trump's representatives have been asked about his ties to Epstein, they've tried to downplay the two billionaires' relationship. Last January, Trump attorney Alan Garten told Vice News that his client had no relationship with Epstein. In a statement to the Daily Caller on Sunday, Trump campaign spokeswoman Hope Hicks said that Mr. Trump only knows Epstein socially through the Mar-a-Lago Club, one of the finest private clubs in the world. But Trump talked up his friendship with Epstein before the latter's arrest and public fall from grace. "I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. Trump told New York Magazine for a 2002 profile of Epstein. "He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. No doubt about it. Jeffrey enjoys his social life." Similarly, the 2003 Vanity Fair profile of Epstein named Trump as one of the businessmen who dined with him at his home, and several other articles have pegged Trump and Epstein as friends. And when FBI investigators looked through Epstein's private address book, they found 14 different phone numbers for Trump, including numbers for his security guard and houseman. Epstein also had numbers for Trump's daughter Ivanka and his ex-wife Ivana. When put under oath, Epstein admitted that he had socialized with Trump. But Epstein chose to exercise his Fifth Amendment rights when asked, "Have you ever socialized with Donald Trump in the presence of females under the age of 18? Epstein similarly pleaded the Fifth when asked about his relationship to Bill Clinton. Trump rode on Jeffrey Epstein's private plane at least once, according to the deposition of Mark Epstein, Jeffrey's brother. That number pales, however, to Bill's 26 trips on the Lolita Express. In June, Trump was accused in a lawsuit of raping one of Epstein's 13-year-old sex workers. Trump's attorney has called the lawsuit a publicity stunt. The case is scheduled for a hearing in mid-December, after the election. A week later, the Daily Beast ran a story titled "The Billionaire Pedophile Who Could Bring Down Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton." A month after the lawsuit surfaced, the Huffington Post ran an opinion article titled "Why the New Child Rape Case Filed Against Donald Trump Should Not Be Ignored." That article, however, focused more on Trump's past behavior with women, largely ignoring his friendship with Epstein. The author of the story, NBC legal analyst Lisa Bloom, left out altogether Clinton's ties to Epstein. Outside of the smattering of articles mentioning the lawsuit, Trump's relationship with Epstein has yet to receive any consistent press coverage during the 2016 election. Clinton's ties, too, have yet to be seriously discussed so far this election.
So I have 3 good articles. My expertise in pedophilia has got more to do with, the conspiracy theory side of it. Well, it's not theory.
Trump's Labor nominee Coaster cut deal with billionaire in underage sex abuse case Alexandra Coaster, shown in 2007 while serving as U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida, is President Trump's pick for Labor Secretary. Joe Riedel/Getty Mark Fisher Washington Post. There was once a time, before the investigations, before the sexual abuse conviction, when rich and famous men loved to hang around with Jeffrey Epstein, the billionaire money manager who loved to party. They visited his mansion in Palm Beach, Florida. They flew on his jet to join him at his private estate on the Caribbean island of Little St. James. They even joked about his taste in younger women. President Donald Trump called Epstein a terrific guy back in 2002, saying that he's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. Now, Trump is on the witness list in a Florida court battle over how federal prosecutors handled allegations that Epstein, 64, sexually abused more than 40 minor girls, most of them between the ages of 13 and 17. The lawsuit questions why Trump's nominee for Labor Secretary, former Miami U.S. Attorney Alexandra Coaster, whose confirmation hearing is scheduled to begin Wednesday, cut a non-prosecution deal with Epstein a decade ago rather than pursuing the federal indictment that Coaster's staff had advocated. Although Epstein's friends and visitors once included past and future presidents, rock stars, and some of the country's richest men, he is no longer the social magnate. Epstein pleaded guilty to a Florida state charge of felony solicitation of underage girls in 2008 and served a 13-month jail sentence. Politicians who had accepted his donations, including former New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson and former New York Governor Eliot Spitzer, have scurried to give them back. Harvard University kept the $6.5 million gift, saying it was funding important research in mathematics. Jeffrey Epstein. This July 30, 2008 photo shows Jeffrey Epstein in custody in West Palm Beach, Florida. Epstein pleaded guilty to a Florida state charge of felony solicitation of underage girls in 2008 and served a 13-month jail sentence. UMA sang /Palm Beach Post via AP. But Epstein's unusually light punishment, he was facing up to a life sentence had he been convicted on federal charges, has raised questions about how Acosta handled the case. Former Palm Beach Police Chief Michael Ryder, whose department conducted the initial investigation into Epstein's behavior, said in a civil lawsuit deposition that Epstein got off easy. That wasn't an appropriate resolution of this matter, Ryder said, arguing that the charges leveled against Epstein were very minor, compared with what the facts called for. In a letter to parents of Epstein's victims, Ryder said justice had not been served. Prosecutors in Acosta's Miami office who had joined the FBI in the investigation concluded, according to documents produced by the U.S. Attorney's Office, that Epstein, working through several female assistants, would recruit underage females to travel to his home in Palm Beach to engage in lewd conduct in exchange for money. Some went there as much as 100 times or more. Some of the women's conduct was limited to performing a topless or nude massage while Mr. Epstein masturbated himself. For other women, the conduct escalated to full sexual intercourse. Epstein has a near-legendary reputation in New York financial circles as a money manager who made many millions for his clients. Although he never graduated from college, he taught advanced math at the Dalton School, one of the city's top private schools, and went on to be a successful trader at Bear Stearns before starting his own firm, J. Epstein & Company, which managed the finances of clients who had a minimum of $1 billion in assets. Federal prosecutors detailed their findings in an 82-page prosecution memo and a 53-page indictment, but Epstein was never indicted. In 2007, Acosta signed a non-prosecution deal in which he agreed not to pursue federal charges against Epstein or for women who the government said procured girls for him. In exchange, Epstein agreed to plead guilty to a solicitation charge in state court, accept a 13-month sentence, register as a sex offender and pay restitution to the victims identified in the federal investigation. This agreement will not be made part of any public record, the deal between Epstein and Acosta says. The document was unsealed by a federal judge in a civil lawsuit in 2015. Andy Pazzier blames Democrats for collapse of his Labor Secretary nomination, Ryder said in a 2009 deposition. The federal prosecutors in Miami told him that typically these kinds of cases with one victim would end up in the 10-year sentence. Ryder said he was surprised not only by the decision to pull back from prosecuting the case, but also by the light sentence and liberal privileges granted to Epstein during his jail term. Acosta did not return a call seeking comment. He explained his decision in a "To Whom It May Concern" letter that he released to news organizations 3 years after the decision. The bottom line is this: Mr. Jeffrey Epstein, a billionaire, served time in jail and is now a registered sex offender. He has been required to pay his victims restitution, though restitution clearly cannot compensate for the crime. DaCosta wrote that the case against Epstein grew stronger over the years because more victims spoke out after Epstein was convicted. DaCosta is Trump's second nominee to be Secretary of Labor. The first, Andrew Puzzier, withdrew last month after Senate Republicans questioned his past employment of an undocumented housekeeper. Support for Acosta seems strong, as some Democrats and union leaders have joined with Senate Republicans in praising the nominee, who has been confirmed for federal positions 3 times in the past. In the 2011 letter explaining his decision in the Epstein case, DaCosta said he backed off from pressing charges after a year-long assault on the prosecution and the prosecutors by an army of legal superstars who represented Epstein, including Harvard Law professor Alan Dershowitz. Kenneth Starr, who as independent counsel led the investigation that brought about President Bill Clinton's impeachment, and some of the nation's most prominent defense attorneys, such as Roy Black, Gerald Lefcourt and Jay Lefkowitz. The defense strategy was not limited to legal issues, DaCosta wrote. Defense counsel investigated individual prosecutors and their families, looking for personal peccadillos that may provide a basis for disqualification. Dershowitz said in an interview that no such effort to rattle the prosecutors ever took place. "That's just dead wrong," he said. "I would never participate in anything of that kind. Of course we investigated the witnesses but not Acosta's deputies. That's absurd." DaCosta's intention was to indict, and he fought hard and tried to get the best deal he could, Dershowitz said. "We outlawed him." Epstein did not return a call seeking comment. Conchita Sarnoff, the author of Trafficking, a book on the Epstein case, said in an interview that Acosta told her a few years after his decision not to prosecute that he felt incapable of going up against those 8 powerful attorneys. He felt his career was at stake. In his letter about the decision, Acosta, who has been dean of the law school at Florida International University since 2009, acknowledged that some prosecutors felt that we should just go to trial, and at times I felt the frustration myself. He also complained that Epstein received highly unusual treatment while in jail, including being allowed to serve much of his sentence in the county jail rather than a state prison, and being permitted to leave the jail 6 days a week to work at home before returning to jail to sleep. The treatment that he received while in state custody undermined the purpose of a jail sentence, DaCosta said. Trump nominates ex-NLRB member Alexander Acosta as Labor Secretary. Dershowitz said Acosta was very anxious to prosecute Epstein, but we persuaded them that they didn't have enough evidence of interstate transportation of the underage girls to warrant federal charges. But Ryder, the former police chief, said the FBI had evidence from flight logs or something that an underage victim was transported on an aircraft of Mr. Epstein. Some may feel that the prosecution should have been tougher, DaCosta wrote. Evidence that has come to light since 2007 may encourage the view. But the prosecutor argued that his office's investigation allowed state prosecutors to strengthen their charges against Epstein. And Acosta said that those who disagree with his decision are not the ones who at the time reviewed the evidence available for trial and assessed the likelihood of success. The deal DaCosta made with Epstein precluded any new federal prosecution based on offenses he may have committed between 2001 and 2007, but in Florida, Trump is on the witness list in a civil case in which 2 attorneys accuse federal prosecutors of having deceived Epstein's victims by failing to inform them that they would not charge Epstein. Lawyers for the women argue that they had a right under the Federal Crime Victims' Rights Act to know about Acosta's deal with Epstein. They say Acosta sought to keep the deal under wraps to avoid the intense public criticism that would have resulted from allowing a politically connected billionaire to escape from federal prosecution. Although Trump and Bill Clinton flew on Epstein's plane and visited his homes, neither president has been accused of taking part in the sexual misdeeds. But lawyers for Epstein's victims say Trump nonetheless may have useful information. Trump banned Epstein from his Mar-a-Lago club in Palm Beach because Epstein sexually assaulted an underage girl at the club. Bradley Edwards, an attorney who represents 3 of the young women, said in court documents. Lawyers involved with the various Epstein cases said there is virtually no chance that the president will be required to testify in a matter in which both sides agree his involvement was tangential. Trump and Clinton are both among the dozens of names that appeared in a black book of Epstein's phone contacts that his houseman, Alfredo Rodriguez, obtained. Rodriguez, who died in 2015, was convicted of obstruction of justice in 2010 after he tried to sell the book for $50,000 to lawyers representing Epstein's victims. In the book, Rodriguez circled the names of contacts he said were involved in sexual misbehavior at Epstein's properties. There were no circles around the names of Trump, Clinton or other bold-faced names such as former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak, former British Prime Minister Tony Blair, and celebrities Mick Jagger, Michael Jackson, David Frost and Jimmy Buffett. Rodriguez spent 18 months in prison, 5 months longer than Epstein served in jail. Epstein has continued to move among his homes in New York City, where he owns one of the largest private residences in Manhattan, Palm Beach and the Caribbean.
All the facts are pretty well established. So, Clinton, Bill Clinton and Trump and, well, all these rich people who can't seem to keep it in their pants, can't seem to leave the little kids alone. It really isn't my expertise, so I've gone ahead but I have sourced out some excellent articles that really put it together, and so I've got one here on Trump's labor nominee Acosta cut deal with billionaire in underage sex abuse case, and I read it and I thought it was excellent. It's about how everybody pretty much admitted that they let Epstein off easy. Even the guy who did it. I mean, he says so so if you want to listen to it, I'll have it right here. And I have this one weird court case linking Trump, Clinton, and a billionaire pedophile. And it talks about the girl and supposedly 2 girls who were, well, I mean, he raped a lot of, from what I understand, and almost everybody says the same thing, and that's that there's no proof, but they believe it. Well, there may be proof, but we just don't get it out here in the media world. There may be videotapes. Epstein was notorious for videotaping stuff. At least I think he was. Maybe I'm thinking of the Franklin cover-up and Larry King. Not Larry King, the journalist. Please don't mix those two up.
The one weird court case linking Trump, Clinton, and a billionaire pedophile, a woman suing in connection with Jeffrey Epstein's underage sex ring, claims she was first approached while working as a towel girl at Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort. by Josh Gerstein, May 4, 2017, 12:03 p.m. EDT. Share on Facebook. Share on Twitter. New York. A woman who claims in a lawsuit that she was lured into a sex trafficking ring run by billionaire Jeffrey Epstein contends that the depravity began at a Florida resort now known as the Winter White House, Mar-a-Lago, Virginia. Jeffrey's civil suit, scheduled to go to trial here later this month, threatens to expose new details of a long-running saga tying together President Donald Trump, former President Bill Clinton, Labor Secretary Alexandria Acosta, and other prominent figures, including Harvard Law professor Alan Dershowitz. Epstein, a well-connected Manhattan money manager and philanthropist, was once a regular at Mar-a-Lago and an active supporter of the Clinton Foundation, repeatedly lending his $727 jet to Clinton for trips overseas. Dershowitz defended Epstein amid an investigation into his involvement with underage girls more than a decade ago, and it was Acosta, then the U.S. Attorney overseeing South Florida, who allowed Epstein's case to be resolved in state court in 2008. The scandal has spawned a series of drawn-out civil suits, including Jeffrey's. Jeffrey, formerly Roberts, claims she was 15 and working as a towel girl at Trump's posh Palm Beach club when she was recruited nearly 2 decades ago into sexual slavery by socialite Ghislaine Maxwell, then Epstein's girlfriend. A lawyer for Trump says the president was unaware of any wrongdoing by Epstein. The case is scheduled for a May 15 trial, but a final pre-trial conference was abruptly cancelled Thursday. The development raised suspicions that some type of settlement could be in the works. Advertising in recent months, the suit attracted the attention of pro-Trump blogger Mike Cernovich, who intervened in the case in an unsuccessful push to release a large volume of blacked-out court filings. "I want to know what's really going on and we can't get it," Cernovich told Politico. "This is a big story. My people care." Epstein pleaded guilty to 2 charges, solicitation of prostitution and soliciting a minor for prostitution. He served 13 months in a county jail and paid financial settlements to many of the roughly 40 women the FBI deemed to be his victims, including Jeffrey. Jeffrey asserts in her complaint that Maxwell, the sole defendant in the suit and the daughter of late publishing magnate Robert Maxwell, routinely recruited underage girls for Epstein and was doing so when she approached the $9 an hour locker room attendant at Mar-a-Lago in 1999 about giving massages to the wealthy. Investment banker Susan Rice is pictured. Vertical line. Getty. Susan Rice declines to testify before Senate subcommittee by Austin Wright. Jeffrey alleges that Maxwell ultimately trained her in how to give massages to Epstein that involved sex acts and, essentially, prostitution. When Maxwell publicly denied the allegations and called Jeffrey a liar in 2015, that gave her the opening to head to federal court and file the defamation suit now headed for trial. An attorney for Jeffrey, Brad Edwards, indicated her lawyers plan to keep the focus on the central allegation in the case. "We are trying to vindicate Virginia. What she said all along is she was recruited by Maxwell and abused by Epstein," Edwards said. "That's what this trial is going to be about, and that's what is going to be proven beyond any doubt. We're looking forward to proving that." An attorney for Maxwell did not respond to requests for comment. In court papers, Maxwell has denied knowledge of or involvement in any illegality. A lawyer for Epstein did not return messages seeking comment. He's repeatedly invoked his Fifth Amendment rights in depositions in the Jeffrey suit and other cases. Epstein, 64, was a regular for several years at Mar-a-Lago. Testimony in a prior court case indicated that Trump flew at least once on one of the planes Epstein owned, and Trump's phone numbers were in Epstein's personal phone directory. Trump has also indicated publicly he knew of Epstein's interest in younger women, although he never suggested the financier crossed any legal lines. "I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy," Trump told New York Magazine back in 2002. "He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. No doubt about it. Jeffrey enjoys his social life." On Monday, lawyers for Maxwell informed the judge that they wanted to ask potential jurors about their knowledge of rape and sexual harassment allegations leveled at Trump during the presidential contest. Maxwell's legal team wants to ask the jury pool if they know about suits filed and dropped or dismissed alleging that Trump and Epstein raped a teen at Epstein's Manhattan residence. Trump denied the charges. The suits were withdrawn amid media scrutiny, although one attorney for an unnamed accuser said she backed out due to threats. hold_Donald_Trump_GDE_1160 and why political class gives Trump the cold shoulder by Jimmy the IELKIND when the pre-trial hearing was scheduled. U.S. District Court Judge Robert Sweet, a 94-year-old Carter appointee overseeing Maxwell's suit, appeared to be on the verge of making the decision on what both sides would be allowed to ask jurors about Trump, Clinton, Dershowitz, and others. Trump Organization attorney Alan Garton said Trump had no relationship with Epstein. "As I have previously explained, he had no relationship with Mr. Epstein and had no knowledge whatsoever of his conduct," Garton said Tuesday. "This has all been reported countless times in the press." Maxwell's lawyers appear likely to try to discredit Jeffrey by painting her as a fabulist and serial liar and have signaled they may drag other prominent figures into the proceedings. Over the years, Jeffrey has claimed that while traveling with Epstein she saw Clinton on Epstein's private island and once ate with Vice President Al Gore and his then-wife Tipper. Maxwell's attorneys have signaled plans to explore both claims at the trial. The Freedom of Information Act request for Secret Service records of visits Clinton may have made to Epstein's Little St. James Island produced no such evidence. However, Epstein's own lawyers once sought to capitalize on his ties to the former president, claiming during plea negotiations a decade ago that the financier was part of the original group that conceived the Clinton Global Initiative. In addition, Clinton and Hollywood guests including Kevin Spacey and Chris Tucker toured AIDS projects in Africa in 2002 aboard a 727 jet Epstein owned. A spokeswoman for Clinton did not respond to a request for comment. Clinton's ties to Epstein became an issue during the recent presidential race. Reince Priebus, then chairman of the Republican National Committee, was among Republicans who demanded a full accounting of the former president's dealings with Epstein. When you hang out with a guy who has a reputation like Jeffrey Epstein, multiple times, on private jets, on weekends, on trips, on places at least where it's been reported not very good things happen, it would be good to know what our former president was doing, especially because it appears he's going to be part of a campaign ticket on the other side of the aisle, Priebus told Bloomberg in 2015. 170,426_Trump_Swamp_GDE_1160 JPG White House Trump transition staffers head to K Street despite lobbying ban by Theodoric Meyer and Michael Stratford. Priebus is now Trump's White House chief of staff. Trump has never offered a similar chronicle of his contacts with Epstein. The White House did not respond to a request for comment. Trump's ties to Epstein have triggered speculation that Cernovich might be gathering information on those who leveled sex-related accusations at Trump or trying to collect information damaging to Trump for his own purposes. The blogger warned last month that he might release a motherload of dirt on top White House officials if Trump advisor Steve Bannon was fired. Cernovich insists his interest in the Epstein saga has nothing to do with the president. The only Trump hook, in theory, is that a lot of Trump supporters, including me, do believe there is some shady going on as far as child trafficking, the blogger said. He was among those who fanned conspiracy theories online about high-profile Democrats operating a child sex ring out of a Washington pizzeria, which resulted in an armed North Carolina man who claimed he was trying to investigate the claims firing shots inside the restaurant. Many of the court filings in the Giuffre case have been almost completely blacked out in public court files. First Amendment advocates say the degree of secrecy is both uncommon and disturbing. "This is pretty unusual to see this level of redaction," said Katie Townsend of the Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press. On Wednesday, Judge Sweet turned down Cernovich's motion to unseal the court records. Because of the sensitive nature of the materials designated as confidential, involving allegations of sexual abuse and trafficking of minors, and because we are mere weeks from assembling a jury for trial, the importance of leaving these materials protected outweighs any public interest in their publication at this time, the judge wrote. Critics say the wholesale sealing goes far beyond what's necessary to address that concern. When these things are eventually opened, I hope we see the nuclear launch codes in there because I've never seen anything like this, Cernovich attorney Mark Randazza said. A lawyer for the New York Post and Daily News tabloids also sent a letter to the judge Thursday complaining about the secrecy. Dershowitz, the former Epstein attorney, is among those who welcomed Cernovich's efforts. Politico reported in 2014 that Giuffre had filed court papers accusing several prominent Epstein acquaintances of taking part in her sexual abuse, including Dershowitz and British Royal Prince Andrew. Dershowitz and the prince flatly denied the allegations. The Harvard professor and renowned attorney accused Epstein's lawyers, including a former federal judge, of unethical conduct, prompting them to sue Dershowitz for defamation. The case was settled last year after Giuffre's attorneys admitted it was a mistake to level the charge in a court filing, although they said their client stood by the allegation. Dershowitz said Tuesday he wants evidence in the Maxwell suit made public because it supports his claims that Giuffre made up the story about him. "I would like the discovery unsealed. My deposition is already unsealed. I have nothing to hide. The other side is trying to hide the truth," he said in response to a query from Politico. The same 2014 court filing also accused Maxwell of being a co-conspirator in Epstein's sexual abuse and of taking numerous sexually explicit pictures of underage girls involved in sexual activities, including Giuffre. That filing prompted Maxwell to issue a press statement dismissing Giuffre's accusations as obvious lies. While the accusations against Maxwell are key to the pending suit, it is framed as a defamation case, alleging that Maxwell's denials were false and that they wrongfully damaged Giuffre's reputation. The most reliable politics newsletter. Sign up for Politico Playbook and get the latest news every morning in your inbox. Email your email. Sign up by signing up. You agree to receive email newsletters or alerts from Politico. You can unsubscribe at any time. The looming trial has all the hallmarks of an epic courtroom battle. Giuffre is being represented by a legal team including Sigrid McCauley of Boies Schiller, the hard-charging law firm whose founder David Boies argued for Vice President Al Gore in the litigation over the 2000 presidential election. This case is part of a broader effort of our firm to provide legal assistance to victims of sex trafficking and other abuse, and to try to fight future sex trafficking by drawing attention to the problem and making traffickers pay for their crimes, Boies told Politico via email. Maxwell also has an aggressive set of litigators seeking to protect both her reputation and what appear to be at least tens of millions of dollars in assets that could be in jeopardy if she loses the case. Her lead counsel, Laura Menninger, is an experienced trial attorney from Denver firm Haddon, Morgan & Foreman. We fundamentally disagree with plaintiff's attempts to litigate this public figure defamation action as a sex abuse and sex trafficking case, and we object to the court's rulings that have permitted plaintiff to litigate the case in that way, Menninger wrote in a court filing last week. We have raised numerous legal issues with the court, and the court has erred in denying those issues. The Jeffrey suit isn't the only one still pending in the aftermath of Epstein's conviction. Another lawsuit accusing Acosta's former office of illegally keeping victims in the dark about the plea deal is still proceeding in a Florida federal court. Critics have suggested Acosta Blessed called a sweetheart deal in which Epstein escaped prosecution on federal charges in exchange for his plea to the two state solicitation offenses. Acosta's handling of the Epstein case came up at his confirmation hearings in March, where Acosta defended the deal, saying it was a broadly held view in his office that ending the federal probe without charges was appropriate if Epstein pled guilty in state court and registered as a sex offender. Senator Dianne Feinstein D. California listed the ex-prosecutor's actions in the matter as the first of several reasons she voted against him. His handling of a case involving sex trafficking of underage girls when he was a U.S. attorney suggests he won't put the interests of workers and everyday people ahead of the powerful and well-connected, Feinstein wrote. Acosta cut Epstein a favorable deal without consulting or even informing the victims.
This goes into detail, I believe, about because if it's got this one video, well, this may not be it. I don't see the and it doesn't have the video. All it has is a video that doesn't go to the link is broken. Okay, that may not be it, but I'll include this. This has got information about what's her name, something Johnson, who's suing Trump, or was suing Trump. I mean, I think she was intimidated out of doing it. It's probably in here. This is, yeah, see this picture right here? This is a picture of the girl doing the video, and I'll tell you what I'll do real quick.
About Donald Trump and rape, because it's Monday and it seems like a good topic. We've been telling you about the Jane Doe who filed 3 federal complaints about Donald Trump, against Donald Trump, for alleged child rape in connection with a party that she attended involving not only Donald Trump, but also Jeffrey Epstein. And this allegedly happened back in 1994. The alleged victim was 13 years old at the time, and we have not learned that much about the victim until now. We now know that the accuser is Katie Johnson. The most recent federal filing includes 3 affidavits, one from Katie Johnson herself, previously known to us as Jane Doe, plus 2 more, an eyewitness named Tiffany Doe, and also a Joan Doe, classmate of Johnson's back from 1994. Now, Johnson's story has been the same this entire time, throughout all of these court proceedings. She recalled being approached by Tiffany, who allegedly worked for Jeffrey Epstein at the time, Tiffany invited Katie Johnson, who was then an aspiring model, to an event in Epstein's home to get to know people and maybe get a modeling job.
What I'd like to point out first is, if there's anything to this, then, okay, this was an orgy, which must have been a pretty big orgy. So there's got to be lots of witnesses, right? Now, I understand that they're not going to be like in a big hurry to say I was at a Jeffrey Epstein orgy. But if the police did their job and they went, clearly nobody's investigating this. So there's a lot of questions there, right? I mean, you got to be like asking yourself, you know, why don't we have the police report that says that everybody said she wasn't there, or they don't remember her being there? I mean, surely. And what about these other women? It's when I see such sloppiness, just like in the JFK assassination, when I see it's purposeful, you know, it's on purpose. They're purposely keeping things murky and keeping the facts away from the people like me who would be interested. I mean, obviously I'm doing a segment on it, so I must be like interested in it, or think that you might be interested in it. And I mean, if it's her word against his, then I could understand, you know. I mean, I don't believe, I think he did it, but I would not like pursue it for very long if it was just his word against hers. And you know, because yeah, she could be just making it up. She could be gold digging, right? It's always a possibility. But on the other hand, if she's not, we're talking about the President of the United States raping a 13-year-old girl. And that would definitely be grounds for impeachment. And not because I side with Hillary or the Hill trolls, because they're just, you know, they're just frothing at the mouth. They want to win, even though they lost for a lot of good reasons other than what kind of person Trump is. So it's really not, you know, when you got somebody who somebody's going after. Okay, so the Democrats, the establishment Democrats, are not even really Democrats, but I get tired of saying that over and over again. Okay, the way that they do things, I could never support them. So if it was just them going after Trump again in that nasty way that they do it, just like they went after Bernie, then I wouldn't even pay one iota of attention to it. But this is some young girl, and she's either nuts or she's telling the truth, and I want to know. I want to know if she's telling the truth. I don't particularly care who raped her, you know. I would want to know if she's telling the truth, and I would be saying to the cops, you know, what are you doing, man? If she's believable, if she's got some corroborating evidence, maybe some other witnesses, then why aren't you doing your job? And they're clearly not doing their job. And since they're New York cops and people like Trump get whatever they want in New York, the cops are there to serve the rich, then that makes it even more obvious, right? That it's just a whole bunch of good old boys.
At the summer of 1994, the lawsuit alleges that Johnson endured, quote, savage sexual attacks by both Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. I have video testimony I'm going to play for you. I want to warn you, it is disturbing. You will notice that Johnson's voice has been altered, and her face has been blurred. Notwithstanding that, this is disturbing. I am again giving you the opportunity.
Somebody else also said that she was clearly wearing a wig. I can't tell, but I think I'll take their word on that one.
To skip past this and come back in about a minute and a half. Let's listen to Ms. Johnson.
Second time that I saw Mr. Trump was same scenario. He was onlooking at an orgy, and Tiffany came over to me and said that Donald Trump had requested that I perform oral sex on him. He came in, and I was basically tied to a bed with pantyhose, and he tried to, he was so tired, it hurt to even lay there, and I tried to, say something. I was like, you just, shut up, shut up, bitch, this is basically like he was being really, really rough, and I started to get scared, and he was, basically like ripping my clothes off, and I was actually, I got freaked out. I just turned on this animal. I was like a completely different person. I couldn't do anything about it.
So clearly there is this video, and I think the cops should tell us why they don't believe her, because this has been thrown out again. This is back in 2016 when he was running for president, and it's been thrown out again. And as what I heard is she hasn't gotten any money, that nobody's been willing to pay her for her story, that she tried to get money, I don't know, for her story. That's possible. That wouldn't be grounds for disbelieving her. I mean, everybody needs money, and she probably needs money more than anybody needs money to protect herself. I mean, she's obviously put herself in a really dangerous position with dangerous people as far as I'm concerned.
He ripped off all my clothes, and he started to basically have sex with me, and I was screaming. I've never had sex before. It was my first time.
Yeah. Appalling and dreadful. Now, of course, Donald Trump has denied Johnson's claims since April. Trump representatives have said that he and Epstein barely even knew each other, but the Daily Beast reports that they were actually regularly seen together during the 1990s. And as I told you last week or the week before, a federal judge in New York has ordered a hearing in December about this case.
And we also know what he had to say about Epstein, which is really damning to me. That's totally damning. That he would say that he thought Epstein was a great guy and fun to hang around with, and that he liked young girls just like Trump does. I mean, Trump said that about himself. Wow. Was he not thinking ahead when he opened his mouth? And obviously he knew people were listening to what he had to say. This was a public statement he made to a reporter or someone.
This story, Pat, sort of proves that the media is out to get Trump theory is total BS, because if corporate media wanted to take down Trump, they would be covering this story, and they would have been covering this story for months. Instead, yeah, they talk about the sexual assault allegations. This is very disturbing video that is now out there, and it's not getting corporate media coverage. Clearly, media doesn't have it that much out for Trump, because they'd be talking about this if they did.
And maybe they're not covering it because it seems unlikely, but when you combine all of the sexual assault allegations, the fact that in court proceedings, one of his ex-wives testified that, yes, indeed, Trump did rape her,
yeah,
and that he would walk around dressing rooms of Miss Teen USA's girls as young as 15 years old. You put
Right.
that all together, this isn't far-fetched at all.
It's all the same story. I mean, all of the different pieces that we've heard all tell the exact same story. And if Donald Trump wins on November 8th, on December 16th, the president-elect will be the accused in a child rape trial. Think about that for a second. Gamefly is sort of like Xbox. Instead,
Yeah, obviously they made it go away. And, you know, if you're really interested in this stuff, go on and find out what happened on December 16th, because I've already got too much on this on my show. So, you know, look into it.
Here's how that wild lawsuit accusing Trump of raping a 13-year-old girl hit the headlines. Anna Merlin, June 24, 16:1:30 p.m. Filled 2. Katie Johnson, 409.9K 310.39. In recent weeks, several national press outlets have retailed a set of very unflattering allegations about Donald Trump, namely, that he raped a 13-year-old at a 1994 orgy hosted by notorious celebrity sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. What no one's reported on yet is the fact that the recent round of coverage is the culmination of an almost year-long campaign to quietly push these allegations into the public discussion, and maybe make some money in the process. The stories are based on lawsuits filed by Trump's accuser against him and Epstein. News organizations on the right and left have started poking at those claims, gingerly and skeptically. The allegations are beyond the pale, even for Trump, and there's little sourcing for them beyond the lawsuit itself. On August 5 of last year, a Gawker Media employee received an unsolicited voicemail tip from someone identifying themselves as Al Taylor, the PR person for the Erotic Heritage Museum in Las Vegas. Taylor requested that someone from Gawker return his call because, he said, "I've got some good info on Donald Trump for you. It might be very interesting for your site." In addition to managing public relations for a museum designed to preserve wonders of the erotic imagination, Taylor said he was a former producer for the syndicated tabloid news show Inside Edition. A Gawker.com reporter returned the call, and the info that Taylor claimed to have was explosive. Over the next few months, the Gawker reporter and Taylor, along with another tabloid producer named Mike Smith and videographer Jonathan Lawner, engaged in a series of telephone and email conversations about Trump. On March 30 of this year, in order to continue reporting out Taylor's claims, Gawker Media entered into a non-disclosure agreement barring the company or the reporter who was working on the story from publicly discussing a particular item without the consent of that item's owner. It is typical for media companies to sign such agreements when deliberating whether to purchase material for publication. Gawker never purchased anything, or published any stories, related to the info that it received from Taylor. In April, not long after Gawker entered into the NDA, a woman named Katie Johnson sued Trump in federal court in California, claiming that Trump and Epstein solicited sex acts from Johnson and another underage victim named only as Maria Doe while the women were involuntarily at sex parties at the Manhattan homes of Epstein and Trump. Johnson, who represented herself in the complaint, alleged that she was enticed by promises of money and a modeling career. In an unrelated case in 2008, Epstein pleaded guilty to one count of soliciting prostitution and another of procuring a person under 18 for prostitution. He served 13 months in jail and has settled numerous other civil lawsuits out of court. He's registered as a sex offender for life. Johnson's lawsuit described a litany of sex acts, including allegations that she was forced to manually stimulate Defendant Trump with the use of her hand upon Defendant Trump's erect penis until he reached sexual orgasm, and that she was later forced to engage in an unnatural lesbian sex act with her fellow minor and sex slave, Maria Doe, age 12, for the sexual enjoyment of Defendant Trump. The suit also claimed that Trump completed the encounter by zipping up his pants, pushing both girls away, and angrily berating them for the poor quality of their sexual performance. The complaint received minimal press attention at the time. An uncharacteristically skeptical reader online pointed out that the address Johnson listed on the court documents is a home that is foreclosed in 29 Palms, California, and that no one has lived at the home since its owner, David Stassi, died in October last year. Radar quoted Trump saying that the allegations were not only categorically false, but disgusting at the highest level and clearly framed to solicit media attention or, perhaps, are simply politically motivated. He added, "There is absolutely no merit to these allegations. Period." Indeed, the federal judge denied Johnson's request to proceed as an indigent plaintiff and noted that while the lawsuit had been filed as a civil rights suit, it failed to state any claim under federal civil rights statutes. The suit was dismissed on May 2. When the court tried to send a notice to Johnson at her listed address, it was returned, with the note "No new address found." Gawker's contacts with Taylor and his colleagues ended after Johnson filed her complaint in California. But in early June, Jezebel was separately sent an unsolicited tip from an organization calling itself Vote Trump Get Dumped. The organization urges women to launch a Lysistrata-esque sex strike, abstaining from owning any Trump-supporting men. Here's a story lead for you. The tipster from the TGD wrote, "Last week a 35-year-old woman named Katie Johnson filed criminal charges against Trump with the NYPD/Teen accusing him of raping her 22 years ago when she was a 13-year-old girl. I've talked to someone who has talked to her, and they are pretty convinced she's legit. This could be some crazy shit." Vote Trump Get Dumped also included a link, but it wasn't actually to an active court case or criminal complaint. Instead, it sent us to a letter purportedly written by Johnson to NYPD Commissioner William Bratton. The letter began with a jaw-dropping, very blunt allegation: "I was violently raped by Donald J. Trump and Jeffrey D. Epstein in New York City, in separate yet related incidents, at age 13. Their sexual assaults against me and other minors, more than rapes alone, occurred on multiple occasions at the residence of Mr. Epstein during June-September 1994. The email from Vote Trump Get Dumped appeared to be trying to revive the allegations in Johnson's dismissed lawsuit, but their suggestion that Johnson had filed criminal charges in New York City was incorrect. I responded to the email, asking how to get in touch with Katie Johnson. I was never put in touch with Katie Johnson. Instead, Vote Trump Get Dumped directed me to call the passionate, politically involved conservative named Steve Backer because he can probably get you a call with her." Vote Trump Get Dumped was founded by an Ohio woman named Chandler Smith and her husband Blake. Backer is Chandler Smith's father. He was once described by the National Review as a conservative mega-donor and the world's most successful email harasser, known for sending combative and colorful email missives to a who's who list of power brokers in the conservative world. I called Backer. In an hour-long phone call, he told me that he was not in direct contact with Katie Johnson. "That said," he added, "I've seen her on video and spoken to her on the phone. Although of course we can't always be fooled." Backer then launched into a passionate diatribe against Donald Trump, whom he saw as the destruction of everything the party of Lincoln holds dear. He said he and his wife became never Trumpers after the South Carolina primaries. The way it happened for us is we decided we were opposed to Trump, he said. We see him as a very dangerous person for the Republic. We see him as a Mussolini or Hitler type. And we discovered in South Carolina that he's also a terrible misogynist. Bader told me he learned of the rape allegations from none other than Al Taylor, who he said showed him an explosive video of Johnson outlining her claims. In the video, he said, Katie Johnson was pretty obviously wearing a wig. It looked cheap, kind of flimsy-ish. According to Bader, Taylor explained the wig by saying that Johnson didn't want to be recognized and killed by Donald Trump or Jeffrey Epstein. At that point in the conversation and several times thereafter I'd expressed strong reservations about Johnson's story, even wondering whether a woman by that name existed. Bader wasn't offended. Even if it's an elaborate hoax, it's kind of interesting, right? He said, amiably. But I don't think it is. In a follow-up email, he was more unequivocal. My bride and I believe Katie. If I had to bet my house on her claims being true or false, I'd bet true, he wrote. But even were it to turn out that we've been hoaxed, I don't think so. It's still an incredibly elaborate hoax, and a story unto itself. On June 14, the male tipster asking to remain anonymous sent me a link to a video titled Katie Johnson Testimony Trump Pixelated and Voice Altered. It shows a woman wearing what's definitely a long blonde wig, sitting in a chair in what might be a motel room, next to a wooden table that's empty save for a lamp. It does not appear to be testimony in any formal or legal sense. The woman is wearing a white blazer, a pink blouse, and a big, amber-colored statement necklace. Her face is pixelated and her voice is disguised. It makes for a fairly creepy overall vibe, as she graphically describes giving Donald Trump a hand job and being raped by him as an underage girl. The first time that I met Donald Trump was at a party at Jeffrey Epstein's mansion. I was 13, she says. He basically asked if I could come over and give him a hand job. She pauses for several long moments. Sorry, this is a little difficult. But before I gave him a hand job he kinda slapped my hand away and said, you need to use a glove. Tiffany ran over and said, no one touches Mr. Trump's penis without a glove. The second time Johnson met Trump, she says, he was on looking at an orgy at Epstein's house. She was approached by Tiffany again and told that Trump wanted her to perform oral sex on him. From there, Johnson continues, she was taken to another room and tied to a bed with pantyhose, bound so tight she couldn't move. She graphically describes being brutally raped by Trump. I tried to say something and it was just, shut up, bitch. It was basically like he was being really, really rough. I started to get scared. And he was, you know, basically like ripping my clothes off. I got freaked out. He just turned into this animal. It was like a completely different person. I couldn't do anything about it. And he ripped off all my clothes and he started to basically have sex with me and I was screaming. I had never had sex before. It was my first time. He told me to shut the fuck up and basically took my virginity while I was crying and telling him to stop. Basically begging for him to just stop. Johnson adds that after the incident she just wanted to forget about it. But once Trump began running for president, she says, she felt responsible for telling people what kind of man this person is. I don't think he should even be the dog catcher, she says, let alone running the greatest country in the world. The allegations in the video tracked with Johnson's dismissed California complaint, which alleged that Johnson was tied to the bed and raped in a savage sexual attack. It claimed, too, that Johnson tearfully asked Trump afterwards what she should do if he had impregnated her, and he responded by throwing money at her and screaming that she should use it to get a fucking abortion. The suit also claimed that Trump threatened Johnson in the interest of keeping the abuse a secret, saying he and Epstein both said she and her family would be in mortal danger if she told. Plaintiff Johnson was warned that this would mean certain death for herself and Plaintiff Johnson's family unless she remained silent forever on the exact details of the depraved and perverted physical and sexual abuse she had been forced to endure from the defendants. Before receiving and viewing this video, I had spoken by phone with Al Taylor on June 8, after Steve Baker connected us. He told me that he'd heard Katie's story for the first time 2 years ago, after meeting her at a party. As a former psychology major in college and reality TV producer, he told me people were always telling him things unsolicited, even now that he's retired from television. I told him I very much wanted to speak to Johnson. Like Baker, he said that wouldn't be possible at present. "I'll keep you on the list whenever she gets an attorney," he promised. Johnson's plan, he said, was to find an attorney, file a new civil case in New York, and then at that point work with the DA, and if they want to do criminal charges she'll put the civil case off. Johnson wasn't out for money, he said. She doesn't think she's going to get any money. If she did she would have done this quietly. It's just trying to get the story out there. Like Baker, Taylor had a strong distaste for Trump. Obviously he's a nut. Anybody with half a brain knows that. He didn't like the change in attitude he'd seen in Trump since he began his run for the White House, he added. Since he's been running for president his whole demeanor has changed. He used to be a big cuss. I never spoke to Taylor again, but over the next few weeks, Baker and I developed a routine. He would email or call with a news entreaty to write about Katie, and I would tell him I didn't see how to do that without talking to Katie. Sometimes, I was also included on mass emails Baker sent to a round of reporters, including Bill Kristol and Eric Erickson, scolding them for failing to write about the claims. Finally, on June 16, he warned that the story was going to bust wide open. With or without me, I am told that the story will break via a network news operation on Monday without interviewing Katie, BDW. I wish I could deliver her, but I can't even reach her directly. There does seem to me plenty to say right now, however. On Monday, we'll be a month out from Cleveland and many steps closer to President Caligula. Sure enough, on June 20th, a woman going by the name Jane Doe filed a lawsuit in Manhattan federal court that is identical in many ways to Johnson's earlier dismissed claim. An attorney for Johnson confirmed to us, "That's my client. They're the same people." It didn't break on network news, but Real Deal and the New York Daily News picked it up, along with numerous other outlets over the next few days. The Daily News described it as a repeat of the California filing with some of the more fallacious and inflammatory charges omitted. Gone from the new lawsuit is an allegation that Trump threw money at the plaintiff for an abortion when she expressed fear about getting pregnant after being raped. Gone, too, is the allegation that Trump called co-defendant and accused pedophile and sex party host Jeffrey Epstein a Jew bastard, and her request for $100 million in damages. The new suit also includes an affidavit by someone referred to as Tiffany Doe, who declared that she was a 22-year-old party planner in 1990, recruited to bring teenage girls to Jeffrey Epstein's parties. She says she personally witnessed Trump rape Jane Doe/Katie Johnson, and watched Trump force Katie and a 12-year-old female named Maria Doe to perform oral sex on him. She claims that she left Epstein's employment in 2000, and was also threatened with death if she disclosed the abuse she witnessed. The new suit was filed by Thomas Francis Meter, a patent lawyer in New Jersey. Law News notes that Trump's attorney Alan Garten is threatening to file for sanctions against Meter if he proceeds with the suit, telling the site, "I don't know of any attorney in this country worthy of being admitted by any bar who would sign legal papers attesting to such outrageous facts." I reached Meter by phone on the afternoon of June 23. He said he'd flown out to meet with Johnson in California and had spoken with her after that by phone and fax a time. "I've gotten to know her quite well," he told me. Meter, who is a partner at a law firm but who is pursuing this case on his own, said he hadn't seen Garten's threat to file for sanctions against him. "I haven't seen it all, but that wouldn't change my mind about proceeding with the suit." Meter got involved in the case, he said, when he read the report on Gossip Extra that said she was looking for counsel. "I saw a woman who was effectively being denied representation because of who the defendants are, and it didn't bother me. I asked if I could talk to Katie Johnson." Meter said he would be happy to ask her. He also said that she is in hiding and in fear for her life. The anonymous tipster who provided the video repeatedly emailed me over several weeks, insisting that I had a moral responsibility to post the video of Katie Johnson or write about the allegations. "Publication is," he wrote, "in the interests of humanity." He likened himself to Daniel Ellsberg, who leaked the Pentagon Papers, or Mr. WikiLeaks. In its second iteration, Johnson's lawsuit has gotten wider play, perhaps because New York journalists have a tendency to swim in a big, bored pack, like a school of fish with quotas to fill. Pretty much all of the stories note that a similar suit was filed and dismissed in California. A few note the special peculiarities that make the case so hard to report on and the red flags it raises. Katie Johnson isn't findable, nor is Tiffany Doe, and the allegations are almost cinematic in their depravity. All those red flags, though, that haven't stopped stories about the new lawsuit from being widely shared on both the right and left, from people expressing horror and disgust. Trump advisor, dirty tricks specialist and vicious racist Roger Stone is calling the suit a hoax. "There's certainly someone in the video. The bewigged, pixelated person is telling a harrowing story. At several points, she becomes obviously overwhelmed with emotion and has trouble speaking. And there's no question that Trump's public attitude towards women is repugnant, and that he is said to have behaved like a lecherous creep in private many times over the years." Ivana Trump accused Donald of rape in an out-of-print biography of the man, the claim she subsequently disavowed in 2015, calling the story totally without merit and saying the claims were made during a tense divorce. But even given Trump's moderately disgusting track record with women, the fact is that a cadre of men have been shopping this Katie Johnson story around for nearly a year, while repeatedly refusing requests to interview the supposed victim. The facts speak less to a scandal and more, perhaps, to an attempt at a smear, one that finally, after months of clumsy maneuvering, is gaining speed.
I represented New York, and I represented New York on 9/11. When we were attacked, where were we attacked? We were attacked in downtown Manhattan, where Wall Street is. I did spend a whole lot of time and effort helping them rebuild. That was good for New York, it was good for the economy, and it was a way to rebuke the terrorists who had attacked our country.
9/11 was bad.
I agree with you.
As Senator Clinton, the pressures are very different. It's a well-financed industry. A lot of people don't realize that the industry that gave the most money to Washington over the past few years was not the oil industry, was not pharmaceuticals, it was consumer credit products. Those are the people, the credit card companies have been giving money, and they have influence.
And Mrs. Clinton was one of them, a senator.
She has taken money from the groups, and more to the point, she worries about them as a constituency.
So what does this mean, though, to these people, these millions of people out there whom the politicians cavort in front of as favoring the middle class and then are beholden to the powerful interests that undermine the middle class? What does it say about politics today?
This is the scary part about democracy today. We're talking again about the impact of money. The credit industry on this bankruptcy bill has spent tens of millions of dollars lobbying, and as their profits grow, they just throw more into lobbying for how they can get laws that will make it easier and easier and easier to drain money out of the pockets of middle-class families.